All right. Welcome, everybody. We are so glad to have you with us back for another episode of the Web3 and loyalty webinar. This is episode 5 for us, and we're doing a little bit different format this week, which we're really excited about. And namely, I want to introduce our guest speaker on this webinar, and it's a good friend of Flaunt. Somebody who we've been in touch with for a while now, and that's McKenna Sweazey. McKenna is the founder of Meta X Moda, or how is it that people are referring it to?
I'm not going to say it
nowadays?
Because it'll get stuck in your head, and then no way. Meta X Moda.
There you go.
Meta X Moda. Well, we are so thrilled to have McKenna on. And McKenna, I would love if you could just kind of kick things off, maybe introduce yourself, talk about your background and what you do today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a marketer by trade and have done B2B and B2C, and have worked at, Yves Saint Laurent and Google and startups. And so that's sort of like, what I know how to do. And then more than a year ago, obviously I was super excited by what's happening originally in like the digital fashion and beauty space. And there's really cool activations. And I think my sort of evolution kind of is relevant to the industry and to all your listeners, in that a lot of what happened 18 months ago with those big brands was a test. They're, going to make some sort of metaverse activation. They're going to launch some sort of lipstick NFT, whatever. They had no idea where they were going to go with that. And so I was writing about that at Meta X Moda, and my work started to evolve with the industry's work. I think, now we can see that this is a loyalty tool. It's a customer acquisition tool. Web3 and putting things on the blockchain, decentralization, ownership gives marketers a lot of opportunity to better engage or get new customers. And so obviously I write a lot and speak a lot on those topics. And then I also work with brands to understand how they can better implement solutions like Flaunt, like what makes it the right time to jump in. How do you know if you're ready? Which the TLDR is jump in now, the water's warm. But it's that's sort of my evolution. I look at it through really a marketer's lens.
Love it. Yeah, and I just want to highlight, like, literally every conversation I have with McKenna, I am learning something new about the even domain that I am constantly, thinking about. And I just dropped one of your my favorite articles in the chat for other people to check out on your Substack. But I guess I'm curious. So you mentioned a little bit about when you were sort of looking at Web3, lipstick NFTs, people just sort of trying to figure this out. I would love to hear a little bit more about your journey as a consumer and just sort of like poking around and testing out Web3, because my view is that it's tough to really understand what's going on unless you get your hands dirty. So I always love asking about people who I respect sort of journey in the space.
And so this will be embarrassing, but I think really, really evocative. I am for, let's say, Sephora. I'm an ideal customer, right? I'm a millennial mommy with some disposable income, and I buy a lot of conditioner, etc. And I think that I am not alone in that, like, my actual usage, or getting PFPs, that's a profile pic or pick for proof or whatever the acronym you want it to be, like a Bored Ape, et cetera, is not really my target demographic. So yes, I have a My BFF because I want to know as a marketer, but like the use case for me is only interesting when you start to see utility. So the utility of like owning my own domain name. So I have metaxmoda.eth, and now you can send me things, which is both a good and a bad. Don't send me anything weird. It's those utilities that make it really interesting for me. I think obviously metaverse and Web3 are tied together. And I do think that from a consumer standpoint, those activations are currently more interesting, and they're currently less blockchain oriented particularly for the like things that I'm interested in. I'm not a gamer. So I think that is a real opportunity for brands to take these people that have tested a lipstick NFT and actually put that utility in.
Love it.
Yeah, very cool. In terms of the brands who actually have made a splash of some kind so far in the space, and as we know, there's kind of a spectrum there. Who are some of the ones that you've really had your eye on or that you admire, and what would you say have been some of the common threads between the approaches that they've taken?
Yeah. So actually, I think a good example is NARS, which is a cosmetic company. And I don't know if they've done much recently, though they talk online. I think they must be working on something, but they're quite early, like for the genre, maybe 8 months ago, to do art by NFT, to work with some artists and to launch an NFT. I think there were 3 tiers, and the tiers came with product. And so testing that out 8, 9, 10 months ago was really forward thinking. Obviously now that's like a pretty table stakes idea. And I think, we mentioned this earlier. Now NARS is sitting on that data, and they're sitting on the wallet addresses. And actually, because there's a physical product, they're sitting on the email and the mailing addresses of those people. So I think that sort of first mover thing is really cool. You didn't have to be like a crypto native to come up with that. On the other end of the spectrum, when you have a brand like Gucci, who has done so many things, really cool partnerships with all the blue chip NFTs, partnerships with 10KTF to manipulate your blue chip NFT. And they're dropping Easter eggs all over the internet. And it's sort of like a best in class case study of like, what does really gamer Gen Z marketing look like when you try and take it to a wider yet luxury space? I mean, they have, 10 billion or something in revenue. They're selling a lot of handbags and lipstick. So I think those are 2 examples, but they're both probably, and I'm trying to think if I can think of any examples, still really scratching the surface of what this is going to mean. It's still pretty niche, particularly when you're talking about dropping those Easter eggs and like laying out the clues on Twitter. That's for your real cognoscenti. Not only are they uber fans of the brand, they are uber fans of using Twitter and then trying to figure things out. So those are cool, but that's not going to move the needle for a lot of big marketers. And I think we haven't seen, and I look to you guys, any activations until Starbucks The Odyssey comes out, any activations that I think have taken the advantage of mass adoption and said, we are going to take this and we're going to actually increase average order value, or we're going to drive down CAC or whatever, because those things have to be done on a big scale.
Yeah. I think even a couple of the examples that you mentioned where, a brand sort of an easy way to get started is because of the interoperability, property of, NFTs. A brand can say, I'm going to add benefits to anybody that owns this token, this blue chip, whether it's a Bored Ape Yacht Club or some other really expensive. And I know that these are expensive, attractive customers for my brand. And I can say, I can just add a benefit. And feels like a really, really easy way to just like dip your toe in, especially if you have some overlap with one of those communities.
Well, think about, Tiffany's CryptoPunk, which is my absolute favorite, which is like, gee, what is a male-dominated community with money who might one day need to buy an engagement ring, which is our bread and butter business and is 16% of our bottom line. And you can bet the margins are huge. Guys who own CryptoPunks and others who are watching the space. I don't think most people view that Tiffany's activation through that lens. For those of you who don't know, they did a partnership with CryptoPunks, and now you can turn your CryptoPunk into a piece of jewelry. I don't know a lot of I don't know a lot of CryptoPunks holders to begin with, but I also don't know a lot of men who wear bejewels. But anyways, no judgment. Do what you want. And it's cool to own one. It's fun. It's a flex and a half. But that being said, exactly, like what can you gain from knowing who these consumers are and that segmentation and sort of the public nature of them identifying as CryptoPunks holders or interested in this or that?
Yeah. The average brand right now has really leaned into engaging the Web3 native audience. And I think, few are doing that in ways that is actually like adding value into some of their core business lines. And one is like kind of in the loyalty space that I think doesn't get a lot of headlines. And that's probably because they're not a major US brand, is Etihad Airways and what they're doing. I'm curious if you've seen anything that they've been up to.
No, only that they were the first person I saw to buy billboards in Decentraland, which obviously, Decentraland is a decentralized blockchain world. So I thought that was pretty neat. So that's a clue that they are out there testing.
Yeah. Just in the interest of time, we'll save that one for the follow-ups. But yeah.
Cool. So our main audience are loyalty marketing professionals that are trying to wrap their mind around this NFT space. They know that it's important. This new infrastructure with economic incentives has loyalty sort of written all over it. But one of my favorite things, and I've posted about this on LinkedIn and stuff, is that you do these imaginary case studies where you sort of walk through what if Gap were to do this? What if Sephora, I dropped the Sephora one. So I would love to just hear what are some of the biggest reasons that you think Sephora, you talked about this a little at the beginning, but like really diving into some of the details of why should Sephora tokenize their famed loyalty program?
Yeah, I think the coolest thing that Web3 is going to give us, and it's a natural evolution of the way we interact with social media platforms now, is that consumers want to be in control of their own data. They want to own the relationship. You have like a very uneven relationship now with your email address being associated with data, and you have no control. And you can go and like look up the things that they think about you, and it's 57 pages worth of data. And I'm actually not in the market to buy an Acura, but okay, it's not really serving anyone. So by using a decentralized system and having consumers actually own that and have it be something that's on their end, and the sort of the brand is borrowing the information, if you are launching like a tokenized loyalty program, I think that control is going to be more important as consumers are currently wising up to this situation. And I think Gen Z, which will be in a completely, a relatively digital, far more than millennial digital group. And if you're spending your time online, then being more in control of your identity is really important. So that's one major aspect. Two, I think, and this will not be right for every brand, but that idea that you can trade these loyalty points on the open marketplace is really powerful for segmenting consumers. You can understand how much it's worth to someone, like literally in a marketplace, like the dollar amount, but also who doesn't even care. They just want to get rid of it. They want that one benefit you were offering and they're willing to sell it on. That ability to sell, I think, is the most powerful attribute. It's far different than just not opening your emails anymore. And then lastly, and this is true of traditional loyalty as well, but it changes the economics a bit, as we know, when you have a secondary marketplace, but it doesn't require cash expenditure to do discounts and things like this. And to say, I'm going to give Bored Ape an opportunity, a Bored Ape holder, to save 10% or whatever. And to do those partnerships, you can do it without any actually effort on the team. I can just say, I want to do that. If I'm using Shopify, I just did it tomorrow, no big deal. And that's a really cool way for a team, particularly in like an economy that is maybe not growing at the pace we would hope it is, to do different tests and to do them really easily. And lastly, and I know you guys have seen this, I don't know if all your listeners have, but there's a car wash in San Diego that's using NFTs as a loyalty program, which is super, super neat. And their stat was that their open rates like quadrupled or more on their emails. Giving people ownership and an opportunity to really earn something means they're going to be more engaged. And so your owned and operated channels become a lot more valuable. And you've already spent a ton of money getting those email addresses, getting those Instagram followers. So it's a way to like really supercharge that connection.
Totally. I love that. And one of the things I say, and you were sort of alluding to it right at the end with the car wash, is if you want people are more excited about things that they own. And if you want people to be more excited about your brand, like let them own a little piece of it via your loyalty status. But there are some challenges. And I like our last week's podcast, actually, we basically ran through our sort of FAQ when people are sort of asking us, trying to work through the challenges. So what are the key considerations that people should have when figuring out their way to get started? Does this make sense for them? And what are the key gotchas or considerations?
So I think it's really important to go in with a test and learn mentality and start small. Not every brand can afford the team and the effort and the work that'll go into a massive loyalty program that is completely on the blockchain. Particularly if you're talking about secondary market, the economics behind that and how do we price the tokens, whether or not you actually buy your way in or you mint your way in by different loyalty actions, that will evolve with time. And so you don't want to get yourself into a position where you're backed into a corner on what you're offering. On the other hand, And that makes it seem scary. But on the other hand, like it is not, it's just an evolution of what loyalty looked like before. We're supercharging it. And so it shouldn't be frightening to just test a little bit at a time. As you said, maybe I'm just going to do this offering on the website. I'm just going to token gate a part of the website and see how that feels for people. Okay, now I'm going to upscale a communication channel and I'm going to token gate that. And then you can work towards a place where, yes, these tokens are available in the secondary market. Yes, we are doing partnerships with other brands, like actually, managed partnerships. But I think it's really about just that willingness to be like NARS and just launch that first NFT and then say, now what kind of engagement am I getting? What does this mean about how I'm interacting with my loyal customers? And now they're loyal, because otherwise they'll just sell it.
Love that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we hear often enough is I have enough problems today with creating loyalty, and now I've got to figure out this whole Web3 thing. Well, one of those problems that we all know marketers are facing today is the impending death of the third-party cookie. And so I'm curious, how you think about identity. And you touched on it a little bit earlier, but some of the challenges that the marketers face around their customer data, understanding their customers, being able to interact and engage with their customers, and how some of these new Web3 technologies might actually be an enabler in the face of a headwind, which is Google taking cookies out of the picture.
So I think that either there's a super Web3 answer, which is that we are going to have a wallet-to-wallet relationship, and the consumer is going to disclose, maybe in a zero-proof way, and the brands will get some sort of conglomerate information, or they'll be able to, based on your past behaviors, let you into their experiences because you have XY household income or other demographic data. I think that's one very Web3 opportunity. I think the secondary opportunity is that we are moving towards another identifier that is explicit, and that is probably email, but it doesn't have to be email, and it's tied to the wallet. I think that opportunity to move towards, and again, it's what I was talking about before, an explicit relationship with the consumer that is not cookie based, where they are having to turn over that information. And I think both of these will be true. We will find another solution that is going to be more aggregated and less personalized for targeting. And then when you get to that relationship with your consumer, it should be some sort of like disclosing who you are. But I think one option for that is that maybe we're going to see smaller databases. If you know who actually cares about having your token, then those are your 1,000 super fans, and that's who you're actually going to be communicating with. And maybe you won't need 100,000 email addresses, you'll need 50,000, but they have indicated far more support for your brand. And that's like a pretty popular concept in Web3 in general, this 1,000 fans. If you're a creator, and your take rate is going to be higher because you're selling your music via NFT, maybe that's also true for brands, that your take rate will be higher, your relationship will be deeper, you'll be more of an identity play, but you're also still selling polo shirts.
Yeah, very cool. Shifting gears slightly, I know I just did see a message come through in the chat. I think it was a question. We only have a couple questions left for McKenna, so we're going to make sure we reserve some time at the end.
Bonus round.
Nice. Yeah, we did send her these questions before, so I want to make sure she gets to answer the prepared questions first. Okay. So you talked a few minutes ago about cash flow optimization and how introducing a tokenized loyalty program might be a positive in that sense for brands. How do you think brands should be thinking about the liquidity aspect of NFTs and cryptocurrencies, and then some of the complexities that might bring to bear in terms of are they going to start having Ethereum on their balance sheets, or like how's that going to work in your view?
Yeah, and I think this is part of like the walk, don't run aspect to it, that yes, you are going to have some amount of crypto on your balance sheet to be participating in these secondary marketplaces and to have your token be available and to hold the treasury. By the way, I mean, the standard disclaimer, this is not financial advice, really, or accounting advice, or basically barely any advice at all. Maybe it's marketing advice, I hope. but I do think that's another reason to start small, because that implication of the secondary market is more complex financially, even if it's more lucrative. And if I'm in-house and I want to launch this, it's very easy to just launch a token that's in a walled garden and say it's worth a 10% discount or whatever that is. That's like already written into everyone's sort of retail accounting codes. What happens next? You want to do tiny tests, open up to other marketplaces, have it be for your most engaged customers. So you can sort of throttle, is that the right word? Slow down the initial movement on the secondary marketplace so that you're not watching just a huge avalanche of sales in the beginning, which would probably mess up your metrics. You kind of need to iterate on how much is this worth to people, and then what are we offering? Whether or not you need to hold it on your balance sheet. I mean, I said yes. Actually, not sure about that. Again, this is not accounting advice. That's like very far from my ability.
We actually literally just got that question the other day. One of the things that we're providing as part of our product offering is a marketplace alongside the benefits portal, just to have and that is one thing that we've been asked multiple times, actually, and something that we're working on, trying to not force people, trying to remove all of the friction as possible. And we'll take or partner with third parties to take your crypto risk. But there may be instances where you're absolutely right. And in order to get started, there's going to be some risk involved, whether it's taking a little bit of crypto on your balance sheet or just sort of figuring it out and reaching a new audience and seeing how they react.
And being really thoughtful. I mean, I think that's why you guys are in such a unique position, because you're working with different partners, you're hearing different questions that are being asked. And so you can list out, here are the things that have or might go wrong, and how much of an issue, how much risk are we taking on with each of these potential questions we're asking, and then evaluating. I mean, everything is a risk. So which one is the most risk, and how can we mitigate that?
Yep. Well, you have already alluded to this a couple of different places, but just like general pieces of advice that you would impart to brands getting started, whether it's jumping straight to loyalty, whether it is, what is really in your mind tactically, like walk before running? Like, what does that, do you think, look like for you? Particularly in taking into consideration, we're speaking with a loyalty marketing audience. So I would love some tactical advice for them.
Yeah. So I think if you just want to dip your toe in, then the answer is different NFTs, POAPs, which are the sort of event-based ones, and start building that on-chain relationship with your customers. Get into their wallet and understand, which will give you the data to look back and say, okay, who are the people that of our customer base that are interested in this blockchain technology? And that's sort of a way to wade in. If you already have a loyalty program, and this is like an understanding of what you want and how you can engage with customers, which, I mean, I think it should be everyone, but let's say some people are farther along that evolution, then doing a cohort test with the people who are most engaged. And this is a self-selecting group, right? If you say we want to do blockchain loyalty, some percentage of your, whatever, let's call it email database, are going to say, yes, me, absolutely, I'm so in for that. And that's a great testing ground. Another, aspect that we know and love about Web3 is community-based. And so getting the feedback from your customers about what they'd like to see can be a guide about the value that they're looking for. So I think if you're not ready to like fully leap into loyalty, doing the NFTs will be a stepping stone, right? Or tokens or whatever sort of blockchain activity you want to do. So that when you are ready, you already have the data points that you've been collecting and building in a new group. And if cookies or even email addresses disappear tomorrow, which God only knows, it could happen, you will now have this wallet relationship that you can capitalize on.
Excellent. Well, we have 6 minutes left. I'd like to go to the chat. We have a couple of questions in here. So the first one is Web3 versus metaverse and loyalty. What are the differences? This is an interesting one. This is kind of a hot topic and something that I know is not super clear for most of us. So I would love if you could just kind of enlighten us on how you think about the delineation between Web3, the metaverse, all these new terms.
Yeah. And I mean, gosh, it is tough. For me, you can't have a real metaverse without blockchain technology, right? Because ownership of digital goods requires a distributed, public, transparent ledger. This is like inherent to me for the understanding of how we're going to actually transact in the metaverse. And if you're going to own land in the metaverse, if you're going to buy digital fashion that is, you know, maybe not one of one, but that is allowing the creator to retain the ownership and the being able to sell a limited number. So for me, that's sort of the intrinsic link. This is the rails, the commercial rails that the metaverse will run on. You don't need that obviously to do Roblox now, which is not a metaverse, but it's a metaverse type platform. So it's just an opportunity to, you can have blockchain without the metaverse. I don't think you can have a real metaverse without blockchain technology. And if it's not a real metaverse, you can still use blockchain technology just the way you do with any other media property for token gating, for rewarding people for different activities. You know, then it's just another channel.
Love that. That's a great explanation. Here's another one. Do you see the opportunity for Web3 loyalty to be net new programs or to append it to an existing loyalty or subscription program? That's a really good one.
Interesting. You know, it would be interesting to have a legacy brand who wasn't doing loyalty launch in and start net new Web3 based legacy loyalty. I think that's pretty unrealistic. But the fact is there's so many Web3 nascent brands and brands who are being born now that are probably going to launch into this because there's no point in doing it based on the old way of doing things and acquiring users on Instagram and whatever and getting their email addresses. Like they were born into this moment in time and have to start there. But I think the complexity of a really great loyalty program, as everyone listening knows, you know, loyalty takes a thoughtful understanding of what your customers want, what they're willing to pay, what they want in terms of benefits. I'd be surprised if you hadn't been doing that, but now somehow tokens made you want to do it, even though tokens are really cool and giving ownership is awesome. That's an iteration, not a revolution.
Sure.
And like one of the brands that we have sort of spoken the praises of is Lacoste, because they're, you know, underwater program, which now has 2 tokens as part of it, feels like a, you know, walking, like they're reaching a Web3 native audience, they're experimenting with co-creation and ownership. And eventually it would be awesome if this is part of the loyal Lacoste customer experience and something that is integrated with their core business. But they have chosen as part of their crawl, walk, run to start small. And I think they're doing a really, really great job. But in that case, it's sort of net new program as a crawling or walking step, which I feel like could make sense, or extending your existing and offering a new experience only to your loyal customers, which is what Starbucks is doing. So
Yeah.
It feels like there's an opportunity to do both.
Last question in the chat here, and then we're going to wrap things up. So how can marketers build a case for tokenized loyalty within their orgs?
So I think the frightening sentence, the one that's like, you know, scares the CMO is that, and that's the kind of person I am to work with. I'm looking to scare you into doing things. Is that this is like not getting on the social media bandwagon early, and you are going to miss out on the equivalent of getting your own domain first and foremost. On, you know, we all know that people who are early to Twitter have the absolute biggest followings because of the way the platform was set up in the beginning. This is a first mover advantage to be able to start collecting the data that will create a robust tokenized opportunity, no matter how you want to use that. Like any good marketer, the more emails, and I use the term email to mean wallet or identity or person, the more you have in your database, the more fun you can have as a marketer, the more you can segment, the more you can target your messaging. So I think if you don't, yes, you can wait. It's probably not going to destroy your business, but starting now is going to reap further dividends than waiting a year. In which case everyone will be doing it. It'll be harder to attract attention, harder to get people excited about it.
And as a product person, one thing I've learned is like your first idea, like it's probably not going to go perfectly. And so the more that you like skin your knees and just like get going, by the time that this is a, make or break and competitive imperative, like you're crushing it. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Well, we're at time. This was incredible, McKenna. So thank you so much for joining us. Super, super valuable. I know for us, I learned some new things. I hope the audience did as well. Where would you send people online to learn more about you? Where can they find your work? I know Connor's posted a bunch of the
Yeah.
articles in the chat. And yeah, where might people go to learn more or get in touch?
All exciting places, but mostly Meta X Moda on Substack. But I have a website and an Instagram and a Twitter and a Farcaster. So all of them, but it's always Meta X Moda.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Just posted it in the chat.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'm just going to quickly flash for anybody who's interested in following along or keeping in touch. We post a lot of this woman's content on our stuff. So yeah, thank you all for joining. This was a lot of fun, and we hope to see you all next week.
Thanks again, McKenna.
Absolutely, guys.
Talk soon.
Bye, everybody.